What is up, guys? It's Sky. Welcome to another episode of Flight School. This one's going to be quick and dirty. I'm just jumping on an empty server. I'm going to do this live commentary style. I just want to talk about 4 maneuvers. And it's 4 maneuvers that is pretty well known, but you need to know how they fit within Battlefield 1 and the plane physics. And they're maneuvers that I use a lot. And it's funny because you'd think that in a dogfight, you want to do all these complex maneuvers, but really, I just have a handful of maneuvers that I just apply to the right situation. It's really important to go over these moves because it's gonna come up in subsequent episodes of Flight School and Fighter Plane Mastery, so I'm gonna assume you guys know this stuff. And jump in an empty server on St. Quentin Scar because it's a nice map. First move I'm gonna talk about is the high yo-yo, and a high yo-yo is simply it's a cutting maneuver that you use when you go above the plane of travel of your opponent. Don't forget to throttle when you pull up, and then come down on them on a more advantageous angle. And you have to remember that most of the time when people dogfight and they're trying to not die, they're gonna turn. People are going to be turning, so it's going to look more like this. You're just going to get above your opponent. Eventually, you'll gain sight of them again and come down on them. Never use a high yo-yo in a negative dogfight. High yo-yo always in a positive dogfight because you lose time when you're trying to climb. Even in a neutral dogfight, a lot of times a high yo-yo is not the best move because when you're trying to climb, someone could just loop horizontally and be behind you in an instant. The next move I'm going to talk about is the Immelmann or Chandel. And Immelmann is simply, to me, it's a switching maneuver where you're just going to climb. Don't forget to use the throttle when you climb, and then reverse direction. And a Chandel is basically an Immelmann, but you do it in a diagonal direction. Basically, any direction that's not the pure vertical direction is a Chandel. And this is important because it builds elevation. And it switches your direction, and it builds elevation. And it's basically a move that sets up the next move. You're never going to reverse a dogfight with an Immelmann or a Chandel. But a lot of times, you'll see me, especially on defense, I'll break my opponent right away. Once I know that I've increased his angle off tail, that the dogfight is somewhat neutral, if I read that he's right behind me, just Immelmann and switch toward him. Switch toward him, and then that just sets up the next move. I might break again, or when I switch toward him, I might pass him in a head-on, and that might set up the next move. So, with that out the way, the next move I want to talk about is a low yo-yo. And the low yo-yo is one of the most effective cutting moves, especially in Battlefield 1, the way the plane physics work. Low yo is essentially you dive, and then you climb and cut your opponent. Basically, if they're doing a horizontal loop, I would cut right into their flight path right there. And a low yo-yo is always the best move to use in a neutral dogfight, or even say a positive dogfight where someone just turns just out of view. And this is where you use the 3/4 rule and cut into their loop with 3/4 of a turn. Now, the only thing about the low yo-yo is a lot of times there's not enough elevation for you to perform it properly. Sometimes you might be tailing an opponent and you don't have a lot of elevation, but you're gonna just low yo-yo with whatever elevation you have. And like I said, the low yo-yo is one of the best moves. You just have to have enough elevation, and you also have to be able to read your opponent's maneuver. A lot of times the 3/4 rule works. You see your opponent turn out of view, you just low yo-yo and then cut into him after 3/4 of a turn. Next move I want to talk about is the split S. And the split S to me is a switching maneuver where you're gonna dive and change direction. And the thing about the split S is that it's kind of a risky move. You're basically dumping your elevation to be able to turn around quickly, and hopefully you'll be in an advantageous position after you do that. A lot of times you'll see me use it after I pass an opponent in a head-on, and I'm above them. I have the elevation advantage, and then you can just split S right away and be right behind them. But you gotta be careful if it's a neutral dogfight, because you dump your elevation, and then if you don't have angles on them, then they might be able to turn around and get the advantage on you. So work on those moves, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, and you'll need to know this stuff for the next few episodes of Flight School and Fighter Plane Mastery. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you later.